You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
You're tuned in to Fantha Tracks Radio.
This is the Fantha From Down Under.
G'day, mate. How you going?
Star Wars news in a single file.
Coming to you live from Quinlan's Cantina in the Gold Coast of Australia. This is your slice of Australian Star Wars news.
Hosted by the Malt himself, Adam Bray.
Alrighty, mate. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Fantha From Down Under, brought to you by Fantha Tracks Radio here. Live from Quinlan's Cantina in the Gold Coast of Australia. A nice chilly morning, enjoying a cup of coffee as we chat to one of the greats, a travel writer by trade, folks, and of course a Star Wars writer, a Marvel writer, and more. A dear friend of the podcast and a beloved Star Wars fan himself too. Today you get two Adams for the price of one, folks. You get myself and of course the amazing, the entertaining and the insightful Adam Bray. Mate, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
You're welcome, buddy, and it's always a fun chat when we go down memory lane and chat some Star Wars. But first up, mate, what have you been up to the last 6 months or so?
Oh, well, I'd like to say it's fun and uplifting stuff, but life happens. So winter's always a quiet time for me, especially around Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. That tends to be a lull for publishing, which picks up in the spring or the summer usually. And it seems to be that way whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or travel writing. It's all the same for some reason. Probably has something to do with the Christmas holidays and marketing books to be ready for the Christmas shopping. So I think that determines the publishing schedules. So, no, it's just been quiet for me. My dad had cancer, and I was taking care of him until he passed away. So that's kind of been my focus. But now I'm looking to jump back. Oh, thank you. But I'm looking to jump back into life now, but of course when I do, a worldwide pandemic hits and shuts everything down. So it's kind of a bit of a false start to life, but hopefully this will smooth out in the next month or two, and we'll slowly get back to the fundamentals of civilization again.
Yeah, I mean, I think some countries are starting to lift restrictions even. When it comes to how they've sort of staged out their preparedness for COVID-19, and here in Queensland, actually, we're going back a stage. So I think we're at stage 3 of lockdown, and they've started to lift it this weekend.
Okay.
And, you can only look outside, and there's more cars on the road. There's more people at the shopping centres. They're still doing social distancing, which is great because that's definitely working. That's the thing that's really done it. I mean, for, the countries and particularly the territories that are doing this, it's definitely helped the numbers fall that are getting infected. Right.
Yeah. Here in Michigan, we've had one of the most strict stay-at-home orders in the country. For we're number 3 as far as states and numbers of cases. So we're, New York and New Jersey are worse off than us and more strict than us. But it's been a little controversial. Some of the restrictions seemed arbitrary. Like you can buy alcohol, but you couldn't buy flowers at a garden center for several weeks. They've since reversed that, but. Yeah, and I knew this would happen, that people were kind of okay with staying at home while it was cold and wet and dark. Yeah. But as it's starting to warm up and we get a few sunny days, people want to get out. And the last 2 times I've done shopping runs, there's way more people, in the grocery stores and at Walmart than there were previously. So I think effectively the lockdown here is done whether it officially is or not, people are just going to get out of their homes. So that's just human psychology and the way it is. You're not going to change that. You might be able to mitigate it a little bit, but that's just the way it is. But so yeah, in terms of Star Wars, it's been hard. In that all of our conventions are canceled or likely canceled. Movie theaters are closed. So, like I had hoped to do, a book tour or a book signing at my local movie theater for the Black Widow premiere weekend, as kind of my tradition. But the movie theater's closed, so I can't do that. Can't do signings at libraries or the other local conventions. So that makes it kind of hard. If I can just throw a plug, a great way to support me or other authors like me is, buy our books from us. I always, it's great if you buy my book from Amazon, but it helps me more if you can, if you live in North America, to get it directly from me, because then I can make a little money off it. Whereas, if you buy it online, I might not make anything. But so then, then you get a customized autographed book with, doodles and things. So that especially helps in light of the fact that I can't do events until this is over, and it may not be over for a long time.
Yeah, well, they're talking about vaccines being tested in and around late June, early July. So, I mean, that's testing. So we got listed a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel there, folks. But, who knows? Hopefully that'll, it'll get out there. I mean, I recently just had what they do have a vaccines for flu shots, and God, it was like a triple whammy. I think they gave me about 5 strands, maybe 6 strands. And of course, they say, we'll do it on 3, and they always do it on 2. Whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, look, my big shout out there goes to the people in the front lines. That, of course, is the nurses, the doctors, the health professionals that are out there. And really, I mean, because some of them out here in Australia in particular are copping a lot of abuse from, the people that are either infected or people that just, I mean, I get it, it's out of fear. Because, I mean, this is a nasty disease. But, put your faith and trust in these people. They're saving lives. It's hard. It's going to be hard. But we will get through this.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. And Star Wars is going to get us through it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm amazed by the grocery store workers, because they're not paid for this. They were never paid for this. They're never going to be paid for that kind of risk. But there they are, making their, some of them probably minimum wage, and they're there every day, so we can buy our groceries. I think they're pretty amazing. They're some of the biggest heroes, and they're some of the least among us. I know often people will talk derogatory about people that work at grocery stores, bagging groceries, or working at fast food, McDonald's or something. But now they're heroes, and I hope people realize that.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally the same thing out in the front lines, supplying. Again, we've got to eat. We got to have food. And we certainly need, that sort of industry to continue. From the government side, obviously, you definitely need an economy to keep moving. Considering like fuel here in Australia, so gas is at its lowest price it has been in about 18 years. We have just paid the other day 70 cents a litre for fuel. I haven't seen that since about the mid-1990s.
Yeah, no, I just filled my gas tank for about $10 US. So I've never been able to do that. So that was cool.
I've even had a friend of mine say, why don't you go and get a V8? Because now's the time to fill up a big 5-litre V8 in a sports car or a hotted up muscle car. But the thing is, when this does subside, we'll be back to $2 a litre.
Yeah, for sure.
big dollars. But look, I tell you what, folks. In the meantime, we've had some great Star Wars. We've had the ending of the Skywalker saga, which I'd love to get your thoughts on. But also, we've had Clone Wars and Mandalorian. Obviously, has been big. But the Rise of Skywalker hit, and I honestly think it's an end of an era, but it's a celebration of Star Wars 2, don't you think?
Mm. Yeah, I think it is. It got me really excited. It kind of, I think the Rise of Skywalker was the best that I could hope for. Mm-hmm. And it brought me full circle back to the excitement about Star Wars that I had when in the lead up to The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
So I think JJ did a great job. He did a good job putting a ribbon on the trilogy. So I found it was it's not a perfect movie. Nothing's going to be as perfect as the original trilogy. That's Star Wars perfection. That's what it's all based on. But what he delivered captured the original sense of fun and adventure that Star Wars is about, and I think that's the most important thing. Authentic Star Wars has to be a fun adventure, a good time adventure that makes you feel good at the end. And that's what he delivered, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, so look, there's so much they had to do in one film. I mean, I think with
right.
Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, I think they spread the story out in each of those movies so much that they had a lot of room for, let's face it, a little bit more fluff to the story.
Right.
It was more spacious.
Yeah.
And I think it suffers the same thing that
right.
Every third film does, whether it's Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi. It has to tie the ends to it.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Right. And, Star Wars trilogies are about friends that become a family. Mm-hmm. And their relationships and their rapport with each other. And they're about romance. Mm-hmm. And neither of the first two films actually achieved that because they never put all of the main characters together. That didn't happen in the two movies. We never had a real romance other than, the kiss between Finn and Rose at the very end of the movie, which it doesn't qualify as romance to me, I think. And authentic Star Wars, trilogies, that's what that's about. So JJ had to do that in the last movie of the trilogy. And that's hard to do when you're waiting till the third movie to do that. But I think with what he had, he did a great job of morphing it into that. So I was happy.
And of course, what a way to start off a movie with, of course, our favourite man in robes, the one, the only, Ian McDiarmid, coming back. I mean, he's just a delight.
Yeah, he is. I think that is both Ian McDiarmid and Anthony Daniels. If it's not their best movies for their characters, it's a tie. Mm-hmm. I can't. I really can't compare anything, other than. Well, it's hard to compare anything to what they delivered here. It's Anthony Daniels was, I think his best movie had been Return of the Jedi, and I think this is right up there with it. Ian McDiarmid, whether it's Return of the Jedi or Revenge of the Sith, this is right there with that. So, yeah, great movie for both of them.
I reckon so. And the fact that too, there's some really great moments, and especially sitting in the theatre. The minute that we get to Exegol, sort of 3/4 mark of the movie, and we see, we thought Kylo Ren's done for. He's thrown the saber. He's chatted to the ghost of his old man, and he's literally going, yeah, all right, I'm going to go fishing. Let's just go fishing. That's what it felt like. He's going to do a loop, and just, throw out the load and go, righto, I'm going to go fishing here on the Death Star. But no, of course, he jumps in a shuttle and takes off to Exegol, and we get to see Ben Solo as we always wanted to see him. And I think, for me, I was at a midpoint there where I'm thinking, I love Rey's journey and I love everything, but there's this missing movie that we could have had, which is Ben Solo, the Redeemed, the movie.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I felt like at the end of The Last Jedi, at the end of the second movie, I felt like we were seeing the second and third movie in a trilogy, like we were missing the first movie. And if I'd had my druthers at that time, I would have just stopped the trilogy there and gone back and done a prequel movie to show us what happened before The Force Awakens, to show us the fall of Kylo Ren and the rise of Snoke. Because that was a story that needed to be told, that has not. I've not read the Marvel comic. Apparently, it goes into Kylo's end of it anyway. But that's great. I'm sure it's a good comic. But that publishing never makes up for what you're missing in a movie. It can complement it, but it doesn't make up for it. So that was missing. I think that should have been part of the trilogy. But now that we've got the Rise of Skywalker, I'm happy with what we've got there. So that's fine.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's hard with a lot of the tie-in work and stuff like that from a fiction side to match that up to, because at the end of the day, we've got to realise that the filmmakers are always going to have the nth decision about what they want to do. They're never going to be beholden to, whether it's a backstory that was done or, or something for a character that sort of fills it out in a novel. We only just saw that recently with the Clone Wars, where the Clone Wars novel of Ahsoka, part of that's been sort of redone in a slightly different way, not hugely, in the new series of Clone Wars, so season 7. So obviously there's going to be little touches here and there. It's always the way, I think, even with novelizations of movies as well.
Sure. What's the part that's been redone? Because I've not read the Ahsoka novel cover to cover. I've just kind of skimmed bits and pieces in my research. Is there a particular part you felt was overwritten?
I haven't gone through the full details of it, but it's little things like little details of lightsabers and stuff like that, like tiny little things that at first that when obviously this was a discontinued season. So, going into it, the writers,
right.
E.K. Johnston, I think her name was, she wouldn't have known a lot of those full details of the season because they hadn't finished the season, So she had liberty to do what she needed to do as a writer to fill out that novel. And, it's this, obviously, the Siege of Mandalore and matching it up. So, obviously, there's going to be that if they haven't finished the season. So, but I still think that's a perfectly fantastic book, though. It's one of those things.
Right.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, wow, what a season of Clone Wars this is. I mean, we get a little bit of 13-13 with obviously. I thought there was a great couple episodes where Ahsoka goes and meets Rafa and her sister down in when she crashes her little Harley Davidson swoop bike.
Right, yeah.
It's great, isn't it?
What was especially enlightening for me was when they go to Kessel, and we see that now, another side of Kessel, because for the Rebels visual guide for the first season, I had written a spread on Kessel, and Lucasfilm had come back and added some information to that, and I didn't understand why. They'd never explained it to me why we had to include this. But back when Rebels debuted, we had to include in the book about there being a lush jungle side to Kessel that was run by the royal family. We never saw that in Rebels, so it's like, what is this? Why are we including that? That's not what it looks like. And I had talked about the Pikes too on that section, and this was before Solo. So, and all that was in the published book. So I'm seeing now, it's because they'd already had this in the Clone Wars. They just hadn't finished it, so they didn't want me to overwrite anything that Dave had done. So it's interesting to finally see this out and explain some things.
Yeah, I love the Pikes too, because they're cold and sort of calculating, but they're also in fear of their master, and it's not until a little bit later that we find out that it's Maul. Like Maul's holding it all together.
Yeah.
Just brilliant, isn't it?
They're one of my favorite aliens to come out of the Clone Wars too, because they are so alien. When you look at their anatomy, how their arms and legs and head and how they're put together, I think they're just they're really cool. And we see one episode. I think it's on the Lost missions, where they're lounging in the palace, and I think the Pikes are probably high as a kite. But it's just funny how laid back and chilled they are. But yeah, I think they're a really interesting alien species. I'd like to see more of them in live action too. What we saw in Solo was a bit different. I guess they explain it that they're living. The guy on Kessel, he's living in a really caustic, hostile environment in those mines. So he's got a suit on that makes him look a little bit different. But apparently his hands and arms and legs are a little bit different. So they've got something to explain there. But I'd like to see more of the authentic Pikes on screen.
Yeah, same. Interesting design, nonetheless. Like it's and I like the sort of, I suppose it's sort of square diamond shape to the silhouette of the alien form itself. It's striking, and I think that's what Star Wars does best, is when you can glance at something straight away and know what it is. Whether it's the George's original costume designs that he always said. You should be able to know what it is at a glance, and whether it's the stormtroopers, the Jedi, vice versa. We know these things subliminally, and I think that's what makes it so great. But Ahsoka's story in this, it really is hers, and God, it's good. She does, it's so well written, but it's also, I think, for me, it's good to see somebody that was a Jedi, and now sort of doing it from for herself to a certain extent, but for the people who are Republic. She's not really doing it for a council anymore.
Right.
Hello, I'm Warwick Davis, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Yeah, it's just completely cool. And this has gone places that I never expected. I never expected this to overlap and intertwine with the movie so well. I just figured, it would go up to the edge of Revenge of the Sith, and then she'd go off to Mandalore and do her own thing in the battle, and maybe we'd come back after the end of the movie, where events take place. But I never expected it to be so intertwined like this. And it gives a whole new dimension to Revenge of the Sith. I'd really like to see, after this, I'd like to see a cut of the movie and this Clone Wars arc edited together, to see how events are happening, side by side. I think that'd be really exciting. That's possibly something they could do at a celebration, too.
Oh, yeah. And especially the little bits and pieces we do hear of Revenge of the Sith coming through as she starts to feel Order 66 kick in, and you really feel her getting that sort of, it's almost like a gut punch of the feeling of the Force, where something really terrible has happened.
Yeah, yeah. And this, too, raises an interesting possibility because there's also an unfinished arc on Kashyyyk. I believe it's Yoda and the Wookiees on Kashyyyk, leading up to the battle there. And I had figured, this story would take place before Revenge of the Sith. But now that we've seen things can overlap, perhaps we could see how an extended version of Yoda's story, maybe even Quinlan Voss and Luminara Unduli, and what happened with all of them, because, even we know from Rebels that Luminara is captured and held by the Inquisitors, because we see her mummified corpse in that episode of Rebels. So that would be very interesting if all of that were told in the Clone Wars arc, and I'll bet it was. I would bet my money on it. So I'd love to see fans push to see some of these, because my understanding is there's quite a few other arcs that, for whatever reason, they've not finished up for this season. Who cares if chronologically, they've gotten to the end of the story. Clone Wars was never chronological, so there's no reason, in theory, they can't go back and finish some more episodes. So I hope fans will push for that.
Definitely, and then there's that one about the Kyber crystals, which Anakin and Obi-Wan did. I think it's a month before.
Right.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith, where they're basically, they're the ones that find the deposits and stuff like that, and it's just after basically season 5.
Yeah.
And that was a great one too. I think
Yeah,
they called
on
it the Clone
Utapau.
Wars Legacy. Utapau, yeah.
Yeah, there were some those great aliens. What do they have? Like an exo body or something with 4 legs that they get in, and I forget his name. The actor that did the main sniveling, slimy bad guy on there. He's a Chinese American actor.
What was his name?
He was in the villain in Big Trouble in Little China.
James Hong. James Hong. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. James Hong. Yep. Yeah. It's a shame to not use that, not finish that up. So I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that arc with Quinlan Voss and Asajj Ventress. Who cares if they wrote a novel? The novel's been published and they made their money. Now show us the Clone Wars episode.
And a lot of people have always said.
I guess.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I guess we'll never see. Yeah, I guess we'll never see the Boba Fett Cad Bane arc supposedly because it tramples over material they'd like to cover in a Boba Fett movie. But who cares? I don't care if this stuff is canon. I just want to see Dave Filoni and George Lucas's stories.
Oh, same. And I think the big thing too is like. With a lot of those characters, and even some that carry over into, whether it's the later years. I mean, obviously we're getting, Rosario Dawson. I don't know if it's official yet from Lucasfilm, but it definitely is from Variety. Rosario Dawson playing an older, more wizened Ahsoka coming to basically the Mandalorian. And we've seen already concept art from around Filoni with Rex in it as well.
Yeah, I guess it's unofficially official.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that Rosario has confirmed it or commented on it. I'm not sure. I never heard any of this firsthand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the assumption is that it's all factual. So yeah, course, I love Ashley, and I'd love to see, Ashley playing Ahsoka, but I also love Rosario Dawson, and I think she would be perfect for that older Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I think that Rosario knew who Ahsoka was and wanted to play Ahsoka before, any of this became, quite the big deal that it is now. I think that won a lot of people's hearts over, a couple of years ago when she had said that. So I think she's got the street cred that earns her a place in Star Wars.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, she's a comic book writer herself. She loves the franchise. She's in the coolest Kevin Smith movie too, by the way, folks, and that is, of course, Clerks 2, with plenty of references to Adam and I's favourite two franchises. That is, of course, Star Wars, and we get a reference to Lord of the Rings in it too. Have you seen that?
My name is Ingrid Geiler. I played Princess Leia in Rogue One, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
Oh, really? Is there? No, not seen it yet.
All right, so there's a scene. I won't spoil it too much because it's funnier when you see it. But there's basically it's set in a takeaway store, and the clerk at the front is mouthing some of the lines to Sauron from Lord of the Rings, and then does the big lines of the one ring to rule them all, and the customer comes in and says, "Oh, the one ring to find them," and they start chatting. And then one of the other guys goes, "Oh my God, Lord of the Rings fans, there's only one trilogy. It's the Star Wars trilogy." and they have a little meeting of the minds there. But it's done in such a funny way that once he gets his little piece out of the way about Lord of the Rings, they stir him up about Star Wars. And they said, I've watched that new trilogy with Mannequin Skywalker. So, I mean, it's coming from Kevin Smith. He loves both franchises. But, he said, Lord of the Rings, it's 12 hours of nothing but walking. Walking to a pit, throwing a ring in and coming back.
Right.
Yeah, so, she was the restaurant manager in that movie. And she just does such a fantastic job. In something that could be just a basic comedy. But yeah, I think she's going to bring some great cred to Ahsoka. But also, Tamura Morrison would be most likely back as, of course, playing the clones. So that means playing Rex.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I hadn't even thought about that.
Considering, how old?
Yeah,
Tim's
Filoni's very attached to those clones, it seemed like he didn't want to let Rex go, so he kind of rejigged it a little bit so that clones, their aging slows down as they get older, in an effort to keep Rex around longer. So yeah, I think if Ahsoka's there's a very good possibility of Rex, and that'd be great to see Tim Morrison.
Tim's a great actor in everything that he's done. I mean, from his work in New Zealand to all the work he's done abroad, I've always loved the passion that he brings to everything. Even if it's a small role, he gives 140%. There's no meeting in the halfway point. And I think he had a great influence on Daniel Logan.
Right.
Obviously both of them working together on episode 2, but I think Daniel saw just, how professional but how fun Tim made the production, and has always followed that way. I think, because I love Daniel Logan. I think he's, as Boba, he is Boba in more ways than one.
Right, yeah. Yeah, no, they're both great.
Yes, I mean, who knows? That could be what's coming. And obviously we've got, I think the one thing that's really surprised me, and I've finally been able to watch it now properly on Disney Plus out here in Australia, on a decent screen, not just on a little iPad or something like, which was what I had before. Resistance, which I was quite surprised how good it was. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I hate to say, I still haven't seen the second season. I've seen all of the first season, and I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I gather have you seen both seasons?
I've seen the first season, and I've watched probably about the first 3 episodes, I think, of the second season. And, it's really good. I've enjoyed it. It's a bit, that hot doggy sort of Top Gun feel to it. And I don't know, there's always, for me,
right.
for this series in particular, there's kind of that Japanese anime mecha feel to it too. Like a Robotech, I think.
Uh-huh. Right, yeah. I don't doubt that probably played some influence on that. The old Robotech series that aired here in the U.S., which I gather is just 2 different series, unrelated, that were thrown together and given the same name. Yeah, that's funny now that you mention it. It's very much the sort of a feel and scenario to it. So yeah, that's funny. I gather the second series has the first season had Gwendolyn Christie, but I know there's General Hux. Does Adam Driver do any voicing? Original voicing as Kylo Ren in this season?
It sounded like him in the trailer, so I'd be surprised if it's not him, actually, because it sounds just bang on like him. I mean, he does Matt the radar technician. Come on, surely he'll come back.
Yeah. Got to, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then, I presume Oscar Isaac's probably in there too, as he was the first season.
That's right. God, he's a busy actor.
I'm surprised they didn't. Yeah, he is. I'm surprised they didn't throw the voice actor that plays Kaz. I'm surprised he didn't have a cameo in the Rise of Skywalker. That would have been a logical, even just in the background. I'm surprised he didn't make it in there.
And that's all for this episode of the one, the only, the Fantha from Down Under. You can catch us next week on Fantha Tracks Radio on all your podcatchers. Go and check them out there. You can catch me, the Fantha from Down Under, also on Lethal Mullet Podcast on Phantom Podcast Network. Catch me on the socials at The Lethal Mullet on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll catch you around there. May the Force be with you.
Thanks for listening. Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.